Over the years, Pokemon cards have gone through massive boom cycles, with some cards multiplying 5 times their original price point. Though one thing that gets missed online is that it's very likely you'll hear when Pokemon cards rise in price. It's on every forum page, every content creator speaks about it, everyone is in the know. Though one area a lot of people tend to miss is that a lot of the Pokemon cards that are today hyped up and rising in price don't actually always climb in price, and eventually they come crashing back down months later, and then no one really revisits those cards or revisits those topics. That's why in this video, I actually want to go over how to collect in a way that has a high chance for appreciation and get you up to speed with the fundamentals of collecting. So, think of this video as just making you think to be a bit more strategic with what you purchase. The reality is, if you buy the right products and you do have a liquid item in your collection, it is likely it will sell easily and also potentially for profit, though, there is fundamental rules to understand. That's why the first area we need to discuss is understanding which Pokemon are actually timeless. Pokemon spans across 9 different generations, and each new generation introduces new Pokemon, new legendaries, new forms, new mythicals, though even though these new Pokemon are always introduced, it doesn't actually mean they're all equal in popularity. Every Pokemon generation attracts a different audience, but when it comes to collectability, the earlier generations usually have more staying power. They've been around for longer, and the people who grew up with them also have more disposable income to spend on their hobbies. When you look across all Pokemon generations, it's relatively rare for Pokemon from generation 6 through to around generation 9 to reach the same level of desirability as earlier generations. Now, a big reason for that is how the collector base has changed. A lot of TCG collectors and high-end investors aren't actually engaging with Pokemon like they used to as kids. That means they love collecting and they love purchasing collectibles, they love opening packs, but they might be a little bit less inclined to be playing the new game releases. And as such, they are less exposed to newer Pokemon, and then they never make those same connections. And honestly, a lot of these people, these millennials who cared about Generation 1, they don't have that same passion for later generations. So they're still deeply connected to Pokemon, but mainly they care about what they grew up with and their nostalgia for. So what does that mean for buying collectibles? Well, it means if you do care about price growth and trajectory for your items, you do need to tailor your purchases to kind of tick a lot of those boxes. One of them being if you do know that there's a big market that likes those high-end collectibles, those old rare cards that do have those nostalgic connections for people who play Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, Pokemon Gold, Silver, then you can kind of look into buying Pokemon that were released in the first 2 generations. That's just an example of how to think about it. It's important to have that mindset because even though you may love Generation 8 and I love Generation 9, I love Generation 7, I know that even though I've got a big passion for them myself, I know that the general market won't have that same level of care, so it is something to consider. So that means if you care about growth, aim to look at collecting Pokemon that have the most nostalgic ties to the biggest audience. Some of these Pokemon, just from the top of my head, they're like Mewtwo, Charizard, Blastoise, and then you have a lot of Pokemon also from Generation 1. I mean, if we look at Temporal Forces, for example, I personally think that this set has some of the best and most creative special illustration rares, though when you look at the actual Pokemon, they're all the Paradox Pokemon from Generation 9. Even though the artworks are awesome, they're very cohesive, they don't carry that same demand. And then Temporal Forces, to me, it looks like a very Generation 9 themed set, but then again, it doesn't have that massive fan demand in terms of the market. And it may one day get very nostalgic for people who love Generation 9, but as it stands, it's not going to ever be as popular right now as something like Destined Rivals, because Destined Rivals contains heaps of old school favorites. It has a lot of Pokemon that are connected to older audiences, such as Crobat, Ho-Oh, Mewtwo, and all of those. So you do need to think a little bit outside the box when you're looking at sets to invest in, when you're looking at sets to purchase, if you do care about growth. Not everything in this hobby is growth. I know a lot of people think, oh, but we're so sick of Pokemon cards and the money, and I agree, but I also have to tell, especially because there's a lot of you watching, big audience, that, hey, if you're going to be spending $300-$400 on a booster box, or you're going to be spending $500 on a PSA 10 card, you also don't want to just be putting that money down the drain. You do want to think a little bit because collectibles have gone and moved into more of an investing kind of world as well. It is still much more a collectible, but there has to be that honesty when you're looking at it that they also do appreciate in price, and you do have to have that realistic overview when you're buying these cards. Now also, when considering growing a collection that appreciates in value, it's actually very important that you track your collection's worth over time, and the best way to do that is with the Collector app, who are the sponsors of today's video. Collector is your go-to app for collectors who actually want to understand how their collection performs over time. Collector works as a next generation portfolio manager, letting you track the value of your Pokemon collection across the long term, but it also has a very unique set analytics feature. Set analytics gives you a very deep insight into a set's historical performance, and I personally love how it shows you the top market movers in a set. This is actually a really good tool to have if you want to consider purchasing a particular set, because you can actually see what the top singles are selling for. They've also added a trade analyzer feature, and this is huge. This lets you compare trades using the real market data. So you can just upload what you're trading versus what you're receiving, and it actually shows you the difference in the current market prices. You can find the details to download the Collector app in the video's description. A big thanks to Collector for supporting the channel. Now let's jump back in. Now the second area is focus on the liquidity of the item before buying. Every single item you buy has a buyer market available. One thing that sometimes people get tripped up with is they re-enter the hobby, they look at a nostalgic card that they have, they show like an emotional connection to that card, and then they want to add it to their collections, but they have the mindset that, hey, this is going to grow. If you're buying nostalgic cards or, nostalgic memories, that's awesome. I do that too. In fact, a lot of my collection is I love my old cards. I love my old memories, right? That's a big thing for me. But if you are buying old cards and you are buying those old collectibles, one thing you need to understand is that they're relevant to you and the market might not see them the same. A big example for this is the Murkrow First Edition from Neo Genesis. I've spoken about this card in previous videos, but this card to me as a kid was a massive, massive hype card for me because I saw it, I remember I pulled it from the pack, I was like, wow, what is this? Dark Pokemon just released in Generation 2, so it was a new card for me. I remember just collecting all my base set cards, all my Generation 1 cards. When I saw this card, it was a big standout for me. I have massive connections to this card. If I bought this card in a PSA 10, it is relevant to me. The market probably doesn't care about this card. In fact, a lot of people don't care about this card at all. This card is relevant to me. And the same thing with the first edition Slowking as well. These cards are very much tied to memories I have. If I put it to market, sure, it may grow over time, but also there's a big chance that these cards may not even rise in price because, there is a niche collector who likes these. Whereas when you're talking cards for the broader audience, such as cards like Moonbryon, or Bubble Mew, or those big chase cards that really define an era, they have a buyer market that is far bigger and less niche. So if you are buying cards and you do care about price growth, I wouldn't be focusing on cards from your nostalgic memories from when you were a kid or things like that, and then kind of thinking, hey, I'm buying it as my collectibles, but it's also going to grow in price, because it's likely that it won't, because it's a niche memory for you. What usually performs really good over time is buying into items that have massive kind of market already available for them and people care about it. I actually bought this Yu-Gi-Oh set. It was I can't even remember, off the top of my head, it was the 5Ds Junk Warrior starter deck. Oh, dude, this is going back like 2000 I think it released in 2007. Anyway, I was looking at all these cards, I was buying it, and I found this and I was like, oh, I want to buy this starter deck, and I couldn't wait. I added it to my collection. I think since I bought that in like 2022 to now, it hasn't moved at all. It's stayed stagnant. It's old. It's like from 2007. What I'm trying to tell you is I bought that because it was a great memory for me. It's super memorable. I really, really loved that starter deck. I had massive kind of memories playing that, back in high school. But there you go. It's unique to me. It doesn't have that big audience appeal. So it's very important that even though there's a lot of things when you collect it as a kid and you have these nostalgic ties, the liquidity of those items may not be there. So you do need to consider that before spending a lot of money on them. And also, I just want to say, if you have been enjoying the video, my name is Phil and I've been making content here for a while. Definitely feel free to subscribe. It's always good seeing new people. And I'm sure that if you have enjoyed the videos, I'm sure you'll enjoy the other library of content that's out there on my channel. Now, the third area is understanding the history of sealed products and how sealed products behave in the market. Sealed products have a magic about them. The reason why is they kind of go against natural human behavior. When you have a sealed product, most people want to open it. You want to see what's inside the mystery box. You want to see what cards are in there. You want to know if there's a chase card. it brings a lot of curiosity. When you buy a booster box, the first thing everyone wants to do is rip open those products and, see what's inside. But because of that, sealed product tends to also increase in price a lot over time, because sealed products are a collectible separate from the cards. And this is something that's very crucial to understand. Cards and singles are collectibles in and that of themselves. Sealed isn't that much of a collectible when it releases. Well, historically it wasn't. Now it's kind of changed a bit, because sealed, pretty much as soon as it releases, it starts rising in price as well. It's gone a little bit bananas in that regard. But in terms of that, sealed product is always, you think of it as a pie, and once the products go out of print, that pie is continuously getting smaller, smaller, and smaller, especially for sets that are out of print. Think your Sword and Shield sets, anything from the Sun and Moon era, even early Scarlet and Violet era sets. If they're all out of print, or whatever product is out of print, once that's done and it's not getting released on market anymore, those sealed booster boxes are just leaving the market. And that collectible, if you want to own that sealed product, is getting less and less. And that's why they start increasing in price a lot, whereas sometimes singles can be far more volatile. So one thing when you're thinking about buying a collection that grows in value is you do need to understand the psychology of sealed product and kind of tailor your purchases to think, do you want to kind of buy sealed or do you want to buy singles? Singles are great in terms of you actually owning the treasures of what you can pull. When you're collecting the singles, you're actually collecting the rewards from that set. Sealed is you haven't actually seen what's inside, and there's this big kind of difference between them, but it is very important that if you do want a collection that grows in price, you do need to understand how important sealed is, and you do need to track all the market history of sealed, because if you do that for any product, and I recommend you do that actually, you can even go on the collector app, go on the max tab, and just look at sealed products to see how they've traveled over years. Anything, go from Sword and Shield booster boxes, whether it be Evolving Skies, Fusion Strike, Chill and Rain, or maybe you'll even go to Sun and Moon products. Look at those booster boxes and just see for yourself how they've traveled, and you can get a good understanding, because the data doesn't lie. Now, the next area is don't get fooled with every new hype period and every new sensation that enters the hobby. There is a lot of hype waves. There's a lot of hype movements. There's a lot of cards that get spiked in price because people just really like a particular card. There's so much media circulating Pokemon. There's things happening in the video games. There's things happening in all different mediums. Pokemon is such a big thing. And then some of that can trickle down into the TCG. Now, there's things that happen in Pokemon that can get brought into the trading card world, but there's also other worldly events that can get pulled into the trading card world that are completely irrelevant, and then they just bring in a lot of hype to certain things. This happens a lot, okay? And when these hype periods happen, everyone speaks about it, everyone talks about it, everyone just jumps in. If you want a collection that grows in price, I would not be buying anything that's being hyped at a certain period. If you want a collection, if you want to lose money in this hobby, that is an easy thing to do. As soon as there's a hype period for a certain card, someone's now wants an illustrator and they're buying that card. If there's anything like that, Japanese female trainer cards in 2023, Shinji Kanda artworks throughout 2025, whatever it is, whatever the hype period is, if you're just buying into it straight away, because everyone's talking about it, the market's moving, there's market manipulation, you will always lose. Because if you look at all these hyped cards and all these hype periods that happened over the last 3 to 4 years, you'll see consistently that they rise in price and they drop. Usually if I see a card price spike, I'll always tell my audience, hey guys, just chill out, man. Don't jump on it, right? Because as soon as you jump on it, you may make a mistake. So just something to keep in mind. But Pokemon continues to climb. There's always new people entering the hobby, though, sometimes there also is people leaving. Though if you'd like to learn 4 incredible tips of saving money when purchasing Pokemon cards, I do actually cover that in this video here. Within this video on screen, I go over the 4 best money saving tips. Click the video that's appearing on screen right now, learn about that there, and I'll see you on the next video.